Today we are doing an evening makeup look. This is my version of 1940s inspired pinup glamour. So if I have a pinup style dress that I want to wear for an evening out in my 40-something years, this is what I do. This is full on. And the reason that I'm making this tutorial is I wanted to show you that just because this channel is about age-appropriate vintage style, welcome to Lady in Waking, age-appropriate vintage style. I know, horrible introduction. Just because this channel is about age-appropriate vintage style doesn't mean that I mean that we wear less makeup. Sometimes we wear more makeup if this occasion calls for it. To me, when I see pictures of myself out and about in like a 1940s style, I tend to feel a lot more comfortable when I have more of a modern pinup look going on. So that's why I did this today. Hopefully it doesn't disappoint a whole lot of you who are here for authenticity, but most of you know that I'm somebody who loves to mix eras, and in this case I really love to go with like a 2000s version of pinup. The wing is very dramatic, the eyelashes are very dramatic, and that's because some of us do have those little small lines at the corners of our eyes. If you have those small lines, it doesn't mean you can't do a wing. Typically it means you have to do a very small wing or you have to go full on wing, which is what we did today. My laugh lines are still there, but they're covered with black liner. So that's what this tutorial is about. Feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe. Don't rate, like, comment, and subscribe. And if this is something you're interested in seeing, then stick around and we'll come at you at the end when we're finished for a few extra tips. Okay, so here is the Makeup Free Loveliness, and I'm starting with an illuminating primer. This is called the Perfecting Primer by Nude by Nature. I think that is a Canadian brand, and I love this primer. It gives me a little bit of a glow under my foundation, but I don't use a highlighter or any shimmer, or a lot of shimmer anyway, whenever I do an evening makeup look. I just think it looks better in photography for me. And I'm setting my eyes with a primer by NYX, just their eyeshadow base in the nude shade, and a little bit of setting powder. And then I go in with my Maybelline Define-A-Brow in soft brown, and I just map out the shape of eyebrow that I want to do that day or that evening. Typically, I like to do with this makeup style a very 1940s inspired brow shape, and I'll brush the color through and just kind of see where it needs a little extra filling. And then what I do is go through with my eyebrow powder duo by Anastasia. This is in the color Strawburn, and I just take an angle brush and just fill in any of those gaps just to kind of give it some richness and some depth. And of course it's going to look very strong right now without the rest of the makeup, but it does work with the rest of the makeup. So you just kind of, I like to start my eyebrows first, but they do look crazy. And then I'm going to use a nude eyeshadow or an ivory eyeshadow. This is a matte color from my Beauty Counter palette. But you can use any matte nude, and I'm using that on my eyebrow bone and on my movable lid. And then I'm actually going to take a peach color. This is also in the same palette. It's just a very muted peach, also matte. I'm going to be using mostly matte shades here, and I just take a fluffy brush and I put that into the crease, just windshield wiper motions back and forth, and I just sort of make that shadow a little more apparent than I would for daytime makeup. And then I'm using a shimmery copper shade, and I'm applying that just to the lid. And then I'm going to take a very dark brown shade, and this goes on almost like a black. It is an extremely dark brown, very, very rich. And I use a pencil brush and just dab that into the outer corners. This is just going to accentuate that wing. And then I use a clean fluffy brush and I blend that in. So I'm probably going to go back and forth and do that a few times just until it's at the level of blend that I want. And of course it looks very patchy at first because these are matte shadows. But then what I'm going to do is take a brown, like a very kind of cinnamony matte shade, and I'm going to warm that color back up. And then I just dabbed a little more of that copper color back on the lid because it, of course, kind of goes away after a while. And then whatever's left on my pencil brush, I'm going to add that back to the outer corners and as a smoked out liner on the bottom. And I just kind of keep going back and forth with that cinnamony shade and my blending brush and the pencil brush and the darker shade. That dark shade just makes a base, and then we use that cinnamon, muted cinnamon color for a little bit more warmth. And then I'm using a Makeup Geek nude eyeliner pencil on the waterline, and then just a brown liner over that smoked out shadow that we did on the bottom. I also add that up a little bit into the corners of my eyes on the tight line. And you're just going to keep blending until you feel comfortable with how the colors are laying. And then if you need to make any alterations after your wing liner, you can. This is going to be a very bold wing liner. Like I said in the intro, it is going to have to be bold in order for it not to be wonky. So I have those little fine lines at the outer corner of my eye. And if I don't make it a very bold liner, then it will be crooked. So I start at the bottom, I go up in a straight line, and then I draw a line back in to meet the top of my lid. And then I marry the two together with a fine line at the top. I tend to do this because I find that it allows me to have a more elongated look to the wing. And I'll just keep going back in and sort of perfect that. Then I'll add a couple of coats of mascara. I usually add kind of a thick mascara, one that is waterproof to kind of keep my eyelashes lifted. And then I will also add that to the bottom lashes, just a little dab on the bottom lashes. I don't ever overdo the bottom lashes. And then after I've done that, I'm going to blend just a little bit more of that shadow underneath to just sort of make it look a little bit more complete, just if I feel like I need it. In this case, I did. And then I'll add my lashes. And I don't know exactly which ones these are. I think these are Kiss lashes, but just find something that's flirty and fun and your personal taste. I like something that's a little bit more natural. But I'm applying the whole lash, and I start in the middle, and I'm lifting it a little bit at the outer corner. So, I'm trying a new beer. This is called Blushing Monk by Founders. It is a fruit beer. I think it's got raspberry in it. When our love of fruit and our love of beer come together, Blushing Monk happens. Brewed with ridiculous amount of raspberries. Holy Lord. That is delicious. Okay, so this is actually a Belgian style ale with fruit in it. If you are not a fan of beer, this is 9.2% alcohol. Did not notice that. If you are not a fan of beer, and you like sweeter wines and these new like seltzers, fruity seltzers, this is fruity but still has enough beer in it to be respectively called a beer. It is freaking delicious. My husband said I couldn't drink the whole thing because I have to go back to work. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so now I'm going to apply my foundation after I've got my eyes done, and sometimes I go back in and touch them up. I was okay with them today. And I'm going to add my Double Wear foundation. It's in the color Pure Beige, and I'm just using my Beauty Blender to very carefully get around the eyes, around the brows, so that it does not cause any issues with smearing what I've already done. I'll even use that flat brush of my flat applicator brush to sort of get a sharper line around the edges and to make sure and clean up any fallout that has happened. That's why I do my foundation afterwards. And I'm just going to blot and blend until I feel like I've got significant coverage. I like a lot of coverage at night, but I also like it to be sort of a natural finish. And I do not use a lot of like shimmer or highlight or anything like that, typically at night if I'm going to be under low lighting. It's so good. Anyway, okay. And then I'm going to move on to blush, and I'm using a blush called Sunset Glow. This is a very russet colored blush that has just a slight shimmer, and I'm only using this because it's just the right color. I probably would have gone with a matte one if I had it. But then I'll take my Beauty Blender and sort of blend around the edges just to make sure it's not too strong. But I usually blend my blush under the cheekbones to kind of have that 1940s sort of placement. And then I'll use a little concealer if needed, and I'll start to pat my setting powder over it. And then my lipstick that I've chosen is more of a noir red. This is Cola Pop by Clinique, and I use my liner afterwards. I take a dark liner and go around the edges after I've placed the lipstick, and that just makes it look a little bit neater. And then occasionally I will go in and add a little dab there's my dog, a dab of lip gloss right in the center after doing a finger pop. And that just makes it look a little more full. So hopefully this was not too disappointing for those of you who are really looking for a traditional pinup look. But again, this is typically the way I feel most comfortable going out and about for the night when I am wanting to channel 1940s style. I don't typically do a traditional 1940s makeup for those times, and if I'm going to do traditional 1940s makeup, typically I would do that during the day when the minimalism is called for. Today we went with a noir colored lip because that is something that I feel like is what I prefer to see on myself in the evening. If I want to do a full-on red, I typically go with that during the day. So hopefully this is helpful for y'all.